anyway, Dad didn't understand what I was trying to get at. I said, you have a scripture, which is like a little loophole that you guys use to prevent these pedophiles from being punished in the way that they should be punished. And I said, and I mentioned that there had to be 2 witnesses, the victim plus another person, to the event. And he went back to this Mosaic law or whatever that, anyway, he stumbled around a little bit and really didn't even know that was the case. And his wife didn't believe me, flat out didn't believe me that was the case. Now, my dad and I were both in a situation when I was a kid where we had to go to a committee meeting regarding somebody that had been inappropriate with me sexually, and he was ministerial servant. And I mentioned that to him, and he remembers it very well because he got up and had a go at the guy, the perpetrator. And I said, now you do realise that person went on a year later and molested another child, but much worse than, I didn't get molested, but it was very inappropriate what had happened with me. But unfortunately, because he was only reproved from the platform, along with me, because they didn't really trust that what I was saying was the truth. It was my word against his. This perpetrator went on and actually molested another person in that congregation. Now, that was a year later. He remained a witness for many, many years after that. Had they not been so... I was 14, and they were actually giving me the blame for staying at his house, and I was reproved for, I think the reason must have been that I was making up a story, and I said to Dad, and Dad believed what I was saying was true, and I said to Dad, don't you think it was more appropriate for them to actually, maybe have our little committee talk or whatever, but then actually report what had been said by me to the police? And Dad said, this was a long time ago, and he said, well, yeah, I suppose they should have. Yeah, you're right, they should. I said, and Dad, you know that they didn't. I said, why didn't you? And it dumbfounded him. And I said, can I tell you why? And I said, because the fact that these matters, when they're brought into the public arena or the world, which means the police, the authorities, bring reproach upon Jehovah's name, and you're encouraged to keep it within the congregation or within the society so that it can be dealt with and sorted there. And at that point, I've got both my dad and my stepmother absolutely gobsmacked. And in a way where I've never seen them like that before. And still they had huge doubts. But I mentioned many other situations as well where I know of on the internet, on YouTube and whatnot, where it's happened, and it's that they've actually been. I point out every other religion will actually report these cases to the law, except for your religion. Now, if I was a pedophile and I wanted access to children and knew that I wouldn't get reported to the law, which religion would I choose, having that? So anyway, got to the point, and then Jenny, my stepmom, started saying, "That's it." She said, well, "I'm going to speak to the elders tomorrow. This can't be true." And I just sort of said, "Listen, now, be careful. Be careful about how you go about this." She said, "Well, why? Why?" I said, "Well, tell me, what are you going to say?" She said, "I'm just going to ask, is it true that you don't report pedophiles to the police?" And I said, "Okay." And the first question I'm going to ask you is, "Why do you ask?" And she says, well, and she looked at my dad and she said, "I'll just tell them that I spoke to somebody at the door." And I said, "So you're going to lie to them?" And of course, I said, "I would appreciate you confirming what I'm saying is a fact." Don't get me wrong, I would appreciate that, but just be careful about how you go about it, and choose your words right. And so anyway, my dad and my stepmom are actually going to bring this up, and I would love to know how it's going to be handled. I mean, I did say to them they have a scripture in the Bible where or they have parts of the Bible where they can justify it, and I mean, it wouldn't be allowed if they didn't have their scriptural loophole. So I don't care what scriptural loophole there is. To Dad, I looked at him in the eyes. I said, if somebody's a pedophile and they've been found out to be a pedophile and they get let back into the congregation that you're in, I said, would you speak with them? Would you remain in that congregation? Because I said, there's no way in hell that I would allow one of my children to ever go to that congregation again, regardless of how much you think that person's repented. In most cases, once a pedophile, always a pedophile. So I'm kind of excited that they've, for the first time, acknowledged me and acknowledged this sinister part of their religion. And I just hope that perhaps it's planted a seed at least. So we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I will have a look through these brochures. They do seem pretty neutral and not really entirely against evolution like some religions are. But I suppose they're very, very tactical in the way that they do things, and do make sure that they maintain as many of their members as possible, because as we all know, everyone's sort of waking up to things and appreciating science for what it is these days. So I could make a lot of fun about some of the pictures in this one, I'll tell you. But that's not what this video is about. So I'll keep you posted.